You're listening to the School Leadership Reimagined podcast, episode 133. How do builders like us make a dramatic difference in the lives of our students in spite of all the obstacles we face? How do you keep your vision for your school from being held hostage by resistant teachers, uncooperative parents, ridiculous district policies, or a lack of time, money, or resources? If you're facing those challenges right now, here's where you'll find the answers, strategies, and actionable tips you need to overcome any obstacle you face. You don't have to wait to make a difference in the lives of the people you serve. You can turn your school into a success story right now with the people and resources you already have. Let's get started. Builders, welcome to another episode of the School Leadership Reimagined podcast. I'm your host, Robyn Jackson, and today we're going to talk about probably one of the biggest game-changing concepts that I've learned in, say, the last 5-10 years. It has really kind of given me a lot of focus when I work with my private clients. It's one of the things that we talk about very early in that engagement, and I want to share some of that with you today. We're going to be talking about the difference between value producing and waste. Now, this is not a new concept. They've been talking about it in kind of business management circles for years, but I have been thinking about this a lot lately as I've been working with schools because I am seeing that a lack of understanding of the difference between something that is a value add and something that is truly waste is really encumbering a lot of us. I think that at the heart of a lot of our burnout, a lot of our overwhelm is that we are spending way too much time on activities that are really wasting our time rather than spending our time on activities that provide value add. Now, people will say, but Robyn, you don't understand. My district makes me. And so we're going to talk about that, the realities of some things that you're asked to do that are in that waste column. But when you think about it like a builder, when you approach waste, mandated waste like a builder, you can turn even waste into something that adds value to what you're doing in your school. And so we're going to talk about that today as we continue our Versus series. But first, I've got a couple of really cool announcements. And the first one is that we are going to do something that we haven't done in a couple of years, but I just love doing this. We are going to give away 12 of our best resources over the course of December. We call it the 12 Days of Buildership. And over the course of the 12 days, starting we've already started. So we've already started doing this, but it's not too late. You can still get 12 resources. These are some of our best resources. Things like how to tell whether or not the teacher is the discipline problem in the classroom, or how to build a healthy school culture and overcome toxicity. We have an ebook around that. We have tons of free resources, and we're giving them away this year in the 12 Days of Buildership. Now, if you are a member of Buildership University, whether you are at the builder level or you're at the insider level, you will get all 12 of these resources. We're going to just put them on your dashboard. And so if you're a member of Buildership University, you don't have to do anything. You just go log into Buildership University and you can get access to all 12 of these resources. If you're not a member of Buildership University, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and join Buildership University. We have a free tier now. And to do that, you can simply go to buildershipuniversity.com and join Buildership University for free and get access to these resources. If you, for some reason, don't want to join Buildership University, or you're kind of leery about joining it, you can sample the kind of resources that we get in Buildership University by simply just signing up for that 12 Days of Buildership promotion. And so we'll make sure we put a link to it in the show notes for the podcast today. And remember, you can always get to the show notes for any episode by going to schoolleadershipreimagined.com/episode 133. That's today's episode. You can get every episode the same way, schoolleadershipreimagined.com/episode, whatever. Today is 133. So if you want to get all 12 resources and have access to them for as long as you want, then my suggestion is you go to buildershipuniversity.com and you sign up for free. The other thing is that Buildership University, we are really doubling down on providing lots of resources inside of there. So those of you who are insiders, we just finished a system simplification sprint where we took some of the systems that we have in our school and we re-examined those systems through the lens of our vision, mission, and core values and made those systems work better. Anything from a discipline system to how to support your struggling learners, a system around that, to systems around how to plan lessons that are more rigorous and more standards aligned, and mapping out those systems. And so we're actively doing that now. We have a feedback thread inside of our kind of online forum, and people are posting their systems and getting feedback. We've been talking about systems in office hours. So that is continuing. We are going to be starting our next book club selection. You're really going to like this one. So Buildership University insiders who got a lot going on. Plus, we have a party in a couple of weeks. So make sure that if you are a Buildership University insider, that you are checking your email. We are going to send you a box. We are famous for our boxes. And don't think that just because you went to last year's December party that you know what's in the box. The box has something totally new and different in it. And the only way you get access to the box is you have to RSVP for the party. So if you're a BU insider, look out for an email announcing the party. Make sure that you RSVP. Our parties are lit. So make sure that you join us for that. And if you're not a BU insider and you want to know what all the hype is about, again, go to buildershipuniversity.com and sign up and join the BU insider level. That's where we do office hours every other week. You get training on some of the critical issues that you're facing. We do sprints where we actually get work done. So it's not like you sit in training and have to do it later on. We get together, we get the work done in real time together where you can ask questions and get coaching and see what other people are working on and collaborate. So we have that happening inside of Buildership University. It's just a really cool place to be. So Buildership University for our 12 days of Buildership resources, any level membership, you get access to that. And then if you want to go deeper, if you want to become a part of, Buildership University is like my favorite part of what I do. We go to office hours and, people, we're following up with each other. We're supporting each other. People say all the time, I'm just coming to get my cup filled. I go to office hours to get my cup filled. It is one of the most supportive, wonderful group of people that I've ever had the privilege of serving. I love them so much. And so if you want to be a part of that, if you want to be a part of a group of people who are actually changing the game in education, who are changing their schools in some meaningful ways, who are pursuing these 100% visions and they're making progress and they're seeing that progress, then you need to join Buildership University. Last thing, Builders Lab still have tickets available. We only have about 20 tickets left. So if you've been thinking about coming to Builders Lab and you've been putting it off, you don't have much time left. You need to get your ticket. We will be having Builders Lab January 30th through February 2nd, 2022, and it's going to be amazing. If you've been to Builders Lab before, this Builders Lab is going to be a little different. We have learned so much that we are restructuring a lot of what happens in Builders Lab. Yes, there will still be micro slicing. You won't miss out on that. Yes, there will still be a Builders box, and it is going to have some really cool surprises in there as well. But one of the things we're doing is we're making it a little bit more focused. When you come to Builders Lab, the reason that you come is because you want to develop a more powerful vision for your school. You are tired of settling for these little tiny incremental gains, and you want to do something big. You came to education. You became a principal. You became a district builder because you wanted to make a difference. And so what we do is we help you tap into that. A lot of people tell you it can't be done. We show you how it can be done. So if you've got a big dream for your school and you're frustrated because you haven't been able to accomplish it, but you have a staff that doesn't see things the way you see, that's a big frustration a lot of people feel, is that you can see where your school needs to go, but your staff can't see it. And so they're dragging their feet. If you really want some help in developing that vision and then figuring out a plan for accomplishing it in the next 3 years and doing it with whoever and whatever you have right now, Builders Lab is the place to come, because what we're going to do is when you're in Builders Lab, we're going to help you, first of all, tap into your dream and figure out what your vision is. And then we're going to help you map out what are the big obstacles to your vision right now, and how do you remove the biggest one in the next 90 days. So after you come to Builders Lab, we'll follow up with you for 90 days straight with support, help, additional training, coaching, so that you can remove the biggest obstacle. Now, imagine this. You come to Builders Lab at the end of January, beginning of February, and 3 months later, that's before the end of the school year, something that has been bugging you all year long is gone. Something that has been in your way and impeding your progress, it's gone. And you don't have to deal with it again. Instead of adding on, we talked about that a couple of episodes ago about the difference between adding things on and removing friction, adding fuel or removing friction. We're doubling down on that concept at Builders Lab. We're not telling you to do one more thing. We're telling you to remove some things that are getting in the way, that to get rid of those obstacles for you and for your teachers so that you can actually see progress before the end of the year. So if you want to come to Builders Lab, and I hope you do, I really would love to work with you directly. It's a small group of people. We keep it small. We keep it intimate. We get to know each other. I get invested in your school, and you have me as your coach for your school for the next 3 months or beyond that if you continue with us inside of Buildership University. And you get that support. You get the resources. You get the tools. You get the additional insight that comes with being a part of that community. So if you want to join us, and I hope you do, you need to go to mindstepsinc.com/builders-lab. That's mindstepsinc.com/builders-lab. All right, let's talk about waste versus value producing. I'll be honest, when I first heard this concept, it's a manufacturing concept. It comes from a book I really love called The Goal. Probably other people have talked about it as well, but it's the idea that rather than trying to speed things up to produce something, what if instead you looked at what you were doing and you started removing waste systematically from your work so that your work can be more efficient, more effective, and produce bigger and better results with less effort? Now, that immediately appealed to me, but for a long time, I couldn't see how it worked in school because honestly, there's so much waste in school that's kind of baked into the way schools are made. I just didn't understand how you could do that. I get the whole idea. People say manufacturing concepts don't work in school because we're not dealing with products, we're dealing with people, and I get that. But that doesn't mean you throw out the whole idea, because there's some value in it. And so I've been thinking about this for a few years now. And one of the things that I've started doing when I work with my private clients is sitting down and really taking a look at what's in their way. And sometimes it's an obstacle that we have to remove. But in most cases, the reason that schools are not producing bigger and better results for kids, it's waste. So you need to start, if you really want to make progress this year, if you really want to eliminate some of the overwhelm that a lot of your teachers are feeling, that you are probably feeling yourself, if you want to eliminate some of the frustrations that you are feeling because you can't move as quickly as you want, you really need to get serious about understanding what activities you do in the building every day are value adding, value producing, or what activities are waste. And so today's verses is about value add versus waste. So let's talk first about what is a value adding opportunity. Now, in manufacturing, there's another definition. We're throwing it out because I can't figure out how it works with schools. Here's what I've come to believe are the idea of value adding opportunities. The purpose of school is to help students learn. I can't simplify it more than that. So anything that helps students learn, whether it's learning social emotional skills and intelligence, whether it's learning reading, writing, and arithmetic, whether it's learning lessons from their own behavior, whether it's learning who they are and what their dreams are, what their talents and skills are, whatever that is. When we help students learn, that is how we add value. So anything that you do in your school that helps students learn is value adding. Now, there's another subcategory of value adding that is called value enabling. And oftentimes when I'm working with my clients, I'll have them sit down and list everything that happens in their school, everything that they do on a day-to-day basis, and what things are value adding. They directly impact student learning. What things are value enabling? They put structures in place to support student learning. And what things are waste? They don't add to student learning. They actually create more complication. They take up valuable time, but they don't add value to student learning. And it's always eye-opening. The waste column is very, very long. The value add column is very, very short. And the value enabling column is just slightly longer than the value add column. So when you look at your time that way, are you spending most of your time on things that add value or enable value? Or are you spending most of your day on waste? And in most cases, whether I've done this with superintendents, looking at what are the systems that they have in place for their district, and we've realized why their district is so bloated. I've done this with department heads and looking at what they do as a department. You know, they think that they are adding or enabling value, but in many cases, they are just producing a lot of waste, and getting those departments really focused on adding value again. And I've done this with principals and assistant principals, looking at the day-to-day work that they are doing and their teachers are doing, and getting the schools refocused on doing work that adds value, that enables or produces student learning, and taking off things off teachers' plates that are waste. You know, people always say, oh, you know what, we need to take some things off teachers' plates. And they just randomly take stuff off people's plates. Now, I don't know about you, but not everything that's on my plate is something I want you to take from me. There are some things that I'm doing that I really believe are important. You know, taking away time from lesson planning, taking away my autonomy in lesson planning by handing me a lesson that you've already created for me, that all I have to do is follow a script. Those are not helping me. I want to think about how to help students learn. I would love for you to give me the time and freedom to be able to do that if I'm a teacher. So when we randomly take stuff off people's plates, rather than looking at their plates and saying, where is the waste and how can I remove the waste so that people can stay engaged in the work that really produces value, we're messing up. So let's talk about some things that are value adding. Lesson planning is value adding when it's done correctly, when the lessons result in more rigorous and engaging learning experiences for kids, value adding. Assessment, value adding, because we're looking to see where students are. If we assess students and then take those assessment results and use those results to adjust how we deliver instruction and how we follow up with students, value adding. Things that are value enabling are things like running the buses, the cafeteria. While they don't directly produce student learning, if your cafeteria is run right, you give students the fuel to learn every day through wholesome and nutritious lunches and an opportunity to just kind of relax for a little bit before I go back and have to engage my brain in some learning. If you run the buses right, we get the kids to school on time, we get them there safely, we make sure there are no incidents on the bus that kind of temper or taint their day. And so they have a really good experience transferring from home to school every single day. So when they come to school, their brains are ready to learn because they didn't experience some kind of trauma on the bus. That's value enabling. Now, waste. That list gets very long. Unnecessary meetings. You know, I don't dislike meetings. I'll be honest with you. I think meetings can be very valuable. They are value enabling. Like if you have a really good planning meeting that identifies an obstacle to student learning and removes that obstacle in the meeting, that's a value enabling meeting. When you have a meeting where everybody kind of sits around and jaws about the problems and blah, blah, blah and complains, and then you leave that meeting and there's no resolution, there's no action that comes out of that meeting, waste. So when you look at your day, are you spending most of your time directly producing value, enabling value, or are you spending most of your time in waste? So what I did is I took some of the concepts and I created kind of a waste audit. I know that sounds kind of nasty, doesn't it? I don't know, I may have to give it another name, but I created a kind of tool that you can use to see and identify waste in your building. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it inside of Buildership University for free. So anybody who's on that free tier, Buildership University, you'll get this tool. If you want the tool, just join Buildership University free. You can get access to this tool plus all the other resources that are available. If you're a BU Insider, of course, you're going to get it. And we might even devote an office hours to kind of working through the tool together and supporting each other to kind of look at our own school and identify the waste. Let me know if you want that in BU Commons, and if that's something that you want, we'll set aside, maybe a session to use the tool. But here's the way the tool works. I've identified maybe 11 areas, 10 or 11 areas of waste in your school, and I want you, and I'm going to list them there, and then you're going to look at this tool and figure out, okay, what do I do that's value adding? What in our school is value enabling, and what in our school is waste? Now, it's not black and white, right? Because as we've already discussed, a meeting can be value adding. A meeting can also be waste. It depends on how you're using the meeting. So it's not just you can go through and just check off things, meetings, tool, lesson planning. Sometimes lesson planning, if you are not thinking about how to provide students with an optimal learning experience, if you're only just kind of slapping a whole bunch of activities on a lesson plan and then slapping the standards at the top, that's waste. So you can't just put lesson planning as value producing and meetings as waste. If you have a really good meeting that solves a problem, it's value enabling. If you have a lesson planning process that is just terrible, it's waste. So it's a tool to help you kind of analyze what you do in your building to make sure that you are reducing waste and you're spending more time enabling or producing value. All right, so I'm going to kind of read to you some of the things on the tool, just so that even if you don't download the tool, you can start thinking about these things when it comes to your building. So the first kind of sign that something is waste is anytime something is either overcomplicated or it's overprocessed. Anytime you do more than what is minimally required to get the job done, it's waste. So these are things like, sometimes we have, this one drives me nuts. I go to schools all the time, and their systems are so overly complicated with so many different unnecessary steps that it's horrible. Like, think about your student referral system. We've been doing this a lot on system mapping. A student commits an infraction in class. The teacher fills out some complicated form. The teacher has to call, somebody has to find somebody to come and escort the student out the classroom into the main office. The whole time that's going on, learning is paused. It's just not happening. And then the student comes down to the office, the student fills out a reflection form, they sit in the chair, then it gets, somebody reads the reflection form. Does this get handled by the counselor? Does this get handled in just ISS or detention? Does this get handled by the administrator? Is this the first infraction? Is it the second infraction? Is it the third infraction? What does our code of conduct say? Who needs to get called? And all of that time, the student is out of class and not learning. So if you have a system in your building that is overly complicated, too many steps, whether that system is how you submit grades or how you give feedback to students or how you process disciplinary issues, whatever that is, it's waste. Now, the second sign that something might be waste is if it requires a lot of searching. Like, in order to get something done, I have to find the form or find the paperwork or look up something online and I can't find it, and where is it? And I can't find it easily when I need it. That is waste. Now, this one was my desk when I was a teacher. My desk was a waste pit. I was always looking for papers that I needed to find. Even as an administrator, I had a hard time keeping track of it. And so if you find that you're spending a lot of your day searching for actual pieces of paper, or your files on your computer are disorganized, or your emails are not organized, that is a sign that that activity has, even if it began as something that was value adding or value producing, that activity is now waste. The third sign of waste is correction and rework. If you are spending a lot of time correcting your errors or someone else's errors, or you're spending a lot of time doing something and then having to redo it, or your teachers are spending a lot of time doing something and having to redo it, or your students are spending a lot of time doing something and having to redo it multiple times, that's a sign that there's something broken in that system that needs to be fixed. If you can eliminate as much as possible the potential for errors in a system, that system becomes way more efficient. So think about this. If your teachers, when they are uploading things, if it's easy for them to make an error when they have to upload some critical piece of information, or if you're asking your teachers to track something and you're seeing a lot of errors in the tracking, misqualifying things. I see this a lot in discipline issues where a teacher refers students to the office for something that really isn't a referable offense, and you see it happening over again. That's an error in judgment. So when you see these kinds of errors happening, people repeatedly making errors, that's a sign that there's waste somewhere in that system. And if you can go through the system and find where the errors are more likely to happen and correct that in the system, you eliminate a lot of waste. The fourth one is that if you are dealing with the same problem over and over again, and you are constantly in firefighting mode, that's a sign that that's waste. Because if you're dealing with a problem once or twice and then you address the problem so it's fixed and you never have to deal with it again, that's pretty efficient. That's great. You're moving your school forward. That's what we try to teach you how to do at Builders Lab. If you keep dealing with the same problem at the same point every year or every week, same thing over and over again, and you feel like you are constantly putting out fires, that's a sign that there is waste happening in your system. Where are you solving the same problem over and over again? Where are you putting out fires constantly? Look at that area and find the waste. When you eliminate that, you eliminate waste and you no longer have to deal with that issue. All right, the next one is procrastination. Do you find that there are some tasks that you just keep putting off and you just don't want to deal with? I read something recently that said clutter is a sign of just delayed decisions. If you see a lot of clutter, it's because I can't deal with that right now. I'll deal with it later. And the stuff just piles up instead of putting it where it needs to be. The same thing is true for procrastination. If there's something that you are procrastinating about, and you're not getting to, whether that's getting into classrooms, whether that's following up with a teacher, there's something about that thing that you're being asked to do that's wasteful. And so one of the reasons you're procrastinating about it and that you can't even procrastinate about it is because there's some waste there. So that's a sign that you want to look at that system carefully and figure out what is it that I'm trying to avoid about doing this task, and how can I create the task, redesign the task so that it's something that I do enjoy. The next one is their miscommunication or lack of clarity. So when people are unclear about what you're asking them to do, when people keep asking a whole bunch of questions when you thought it was perfectly clear, there's a sign there's waste there because people aren't understanding what you're being asked to do. You're spending all this time answering questions you thought were already answered. So work on that area, work on the clarity so that you can eliminate the waste that miscommunication and lack of clarity creates. All right, the next one is assuming or blaming. Now, I see this a lot, and this one seems like a weird one to add to the list. I debated about whether I was going to put this on the list, but I see a lot of waste happening because people make assumptions that are not true. The moment that you go in and you do the work to eliminate assumptions, you do the work to eliminate blame. People are right now, a lot of teachers are blaming the kids because of their misbehavior. You're seeing a lot more behavior issues this year. A lot of people are blaming parents, for not doing anything with their kids. But you know where the big blame is right now? It's on the school district. I have heard so many people blaming the school district, and it is taking the day-to-day operations of the school and turning it into a standstill. People are protesting against every new innovation that happens in the school because they're mad at the school district. And that is creating a lot of waste. And so if you are looking at people who are, like blame, and you have a lot of blame, you're going to have to deal with that blame because that blame is creating waste. If you see that people are making assumptions, but they're not following up with those assumptions, they're not checking in, or they're not really dealing with the reality. Like a lot of people are assuming this COVID thing is going to go away. I heard somebody say the other day, I'm so over COVID. And I was like, you may be over COVID, but COVID's not over you. And so when we have people who have that attitude, then it creates waste. It slows things down. And so if that's really at the heart of some of the reasons why things are slowing down, we have to address that. Now, we don't have time during this episode to address it. If that's something that you want us to address, let me know. Let me know in the Facebook group, the School Leadership Reimagined Facebook group, or if you're in Buildership University, you can let me know in BU Commons. But if that's something you want to deal with, the fact that a lot of people are blaming and shutting down and they're mad at the school district itself because they don't believe the district has done enough to support them, let me know and we'll do an episode on how to deal with that. There's a way you can help people get out of blame and get productive again. And so if that's something you're interested in, let me know. All right, the next one is duplication. Do you find that you are having to duplicate things? Like you sent an email, then you have the meeting and you share that same information again. You see that a decision is being made here, but then somebody else needs to make the decision here. You see two different people who have the same responsibilities and they're not working together. Any form of duplication is waste. So I want you to think about your organization. Where is there duplication, redundancy that you may want to address and eliminate? All right, we've got two more. Next one is task switching. So a lot of people feel like, oh, I'm so multi, I can do more than what I can multitask. That's what I'm trying to say. I can multitask. And there have been studies that have shown that every time you switch from one task to the next task, you lose time. So think about the accumulation of time and energy that you lose over the course of a day because you've been task switching all day. And yet, how much of our day is full of interruptions? How much of our day are we expected to task switch? Well, is that the best way to add value to our students? Is that the best way to help our students learn? Teachers are asked to task switch all the time. They never get like a dedicated planning period where they can focus on planning because part of their planning period is taken up with a meeting. And then, oh, wait a minute, I need to talk with you during your planning period. And so I plan for a few minutes, then I got to go down and talk to you about my evaluation. Then I got to go to my mailbox and then I'll try to plan a little bit more while I'm running copies. And we do a lot of task switching. How often are you task switching every single day? Think about this. You sit down to do some work that you really need to get done. You get a knock on the door, got a minute. 20 minutes later, that person is leaving your office. You try to get something else done. Time for lunch duty. Then you try to get something else done. We may have a COVID case. You got to investigate, try to get something else done. We got a kid sent down for discipline. And throughout the day, you are task switching. Where can you streamline that? So one of the little hacks that I tell people all the time is if you've got something that you need to work on and focus on, instead of trying to do it in your office, do it in the back of somebody's classroom. Find out who's given a test that day and go and sit in the back of their classroom because it's almost like you're hiding out. There are no interruptions or very few interruptions. Turn your radio down so you don't disturb the kids. Let one person know where you are so that if they need to find you, they can find you. You're in a classroom, you're around kids, and you have a quiet place where you can get something really important done without having to do task switching. And there are all kinds of things like that you can do. You want to downplay, eliminate as much as possible task switching, giving yourself blocks of time to do work so that you can get more done in the time that you have, rather than something taking all day because every time you get interrupted, you have to get refocused and recentered on that work again. Don't try to do things that need your full concentration when you know you're going to be interrupted. Now, that doesn't mean you come to work early and stay late and ignore your family. We have to look at your school day. And this is what I often do with my clients is we look at the school day to find when is the best time and place to get that work done. And how important is that work to get done in the first place? And then giving people the dedicated time to do it. You get more done because you're not being interrupted and the work is of a higher quality. You don't have as many mistakes. All right, the last one is waiting. This one is a huge source of waste. If you have a meeting that starts at 10:30, it needs to start at 10:30 because if it starts at 10:32, if it starts at 10:40, you've now wasted that time. And the accumulation of wasted 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there throughout the day really hurts not only your productivity, but it hurts your energy because you get geared up for the meeting, then you wait. Then you get geared up for the next thing and then you wait. oftentimes the waiting happens even with things like, when I was a teacher, I had a waiting waste problem because it took me so long to grade papers that I couldn't move on with the next part of the lesson because kids hadn't gotten feedback from the part that they had just completed because it took me so long to grade papers. I had to invent a way to grade papers that gave kids the feedback that they wanted and could help me cut my grading time in half so that I could get it to them faster. The moment I did that, there was more learning happening in my classroom. The same thing is true for you. Where are people waiting? Is it parents that are waiting to get feedback? Think about this. A lot of times kids are not doing well in a class, but parents don't find out until progress report time. And by that time, you are 4.5 weeks into a 9-week marking period. How much time do I have to remedy that with my child when the first time I'm hearing about it is, it's 4.5 weeks before you send it. It may be 5 weeks before I get an appointment with a teacher to talk about what we need to do to help my student. Now we're in week 6 and week 7 of a 9-week marking period. That's waste. How can we get feedback to kids more quickly so that they can act on that feedback and recover and adjust? How can we get feedback to teachers more quickly? A lot of times teachers don't get evaluated but twice a year. So I'm doing something and practicing doing something the wrong way for half a year before an administrator gets into my classroom to help me correct it. By that time, I have already had weeks, sometimes even months of doing it wrong and practicing doing it wrong before you tell me, hey, that's not the right way to do things. Here's a better way. And then I have to switch and try that new way. And how far in the year am I and are my students before I've adjusted my instruction to better serve my kids? So waiting is a huge source of waste. Are there places in your the way that you run your school right now that have huge amounts of wait time between the time something starts and this time you get an answer for that? And if so, that's a source of waste. So again, we'll put this audit on inside of BU, Buildership University, so that those of you who really want to kind of spend some time thinking about where the waste is in your school, you can sit down and do this and then identify those areas of waste. And then once you see that you are spending a lot of time on activities that are wasteful rather than activities that are adding value, then you can begin to adjust. And you're not doing anything new. You're not instituting a new system. You're not putting a new process in place. Instead, you're getting rid of the stuff that slows you down. You're getting rid of the stuff that gets in the way of what you really want to accomplish in your school. And that's why thinking like a builder is so important. Now, I hear it out in the ether. There's somebody out there that's saying, yeah, Robyn, but you forgot to address the issue with my district. No, I didn't. If your district asked you to do something, paperwork, contact tracing, another process, another form, another data dive, doesn't mean that the request itself is waste. It's only waste if you just comply with the request. And I see a lot of people right now who are in compliance mode. So the district says you have to do X, Y, and Z. So people just, I don't have any other choice. The district asked me to do it. And they get into compliance mode rather than looking at what the district is asking them to do and figuring out, how can I turn this from something that feels like waste right now into something that's going to add value to my school? Let me give you an example. I was working with a principal recently, and she was so frustrated because the district was changing mandated that they change the amount of time that they spend on reading. They were reducing the amount of time that the students could spend on reading every single day, putting a cap on the amount of time because they wanted kids to do some other work, practicing for standardized tests. So she's so upset because she's saying, this is what my kids need. I need to spend this time on reading. So many kids they're so far behind when they get to me that I need the chance to get caught up. Then we start looking at it. First of all, we looked at how the teachers were using the extended amount of time that they currently were having. And we found waste in that. So we streamlined how teachers were using time, eliminated some of the waste from the class period so that teachers could accomplish the same amount in less time. The second thing we did is that new block of time that they were supposed to be spending on teaching standardized tests, We said, how can we turn this into a learning experience? Rather than just, drilling, killing kids and doing practice tests, this is the time that we can go in and start either backfilling knowledge and skills that the students were missing that helps them to be more effective on the test. Or we could spend that time previewing knowledge and skills that they would need, teaching them things like, instead of doing multiple choice tests, teaching them the bigger thinking skill of error analysis, which makes kids better at multiple choice tests, but also teaches kids a thinking skill that they can use in other places. So that testing period became a period where we really looked at teaching kids how to think. And when the students learned how to think, their test performance increased. It was more interesting to teach kids about thinking than it was to do drill and kill stuff. I mean, they hardly ever did practice multiple choice tests. They did some because they wanted the kids to get familiar with the test taking format. They spent their time doing error analysis. They spent their time helping kids compare and contrast and all of those other thinking skills. So they took a district mandate and they turned it into something that created more value for students. Maybe your district is asking you to change the way that you use your PLCs, like another principal I'm working with right now. And they're giving you this protocol that you have to go through for the PLCs that feels horrible. And instead, what we did is we took the protocol that is required by the district, can't deviate from it, and we put value in each of those steps. So the protocol is really about diving into data. Where we found opportunities for value is it didn't specify the exact data that we had to dive into. So we are using that protocol now to really look at the data that is most important for where that principal wants to move that school. So we have something that we teach inside of Builders Lab and Buildership University that helps you distill the data down to a couple of just key indicators. And so instead of looking at all this data and just kind of getting lost in the numbers, we are using the protocol to keep people focused on some of those key data points that really are going to drive the work of the school. And so now this district mandated data dive has really become a good way for teachers to stay focused on the goal, the vision, the mission, and the core values of the school and how their individual work impacts that. So district mandates, I don't really care about them. I get mad sometimes. Some of them that people bring me are rather stupid. Like people who build Buildership University insiders, that there have been a couple of times when people come to office hours and they're like, okay, so my district has asked me to do this. How do I see this through the lens of a builder? And I just, I'm shaking my head, I have my head down because I just can't believe, why somebody would make you do that. But when you think like a builder, you can take something, what I call mandated waste. You can take mandated waste and turn it into something that adds value to your school, but you can't do it if you don't know the difference. And so what I want to challenge you to do today is to see your work a little differently. Stop looking at the individual task. Ask yourself, does this thing that I'm working on right now add value? Is it directly impacting students' learning? Does it enable value? And if you find like you've got to explain too much to figure out if it enables value, stop. It should be pretty obvious how it enables that learning. If it doesn't enable learning or directly create learning for students, it is waste. And if it's waste, you want to eliminate as much of it as possible. So my challenge to you this week, are you adding value or is it waste? And the moment you start to look at your work that way, it opens up all kinds of possibilities. You see, without adding anything else to people's plates, how you can make the work that you do in your school more efficient, more enjoyable, more effective, and actually produce results. And when you start thinking about what do I take from teachers' plates, well, what teachers want you to do is stop adding waste to their plates, so that they can do the work that they came here to do. What you want to do most is spend your day working on the things that are actually going to make a difference in the lives of kids. So you can do this, or you can keep wasting a lot of time. And here's what's going to happen. The more you and your teachers spend your day on waste, the less students learn. That's obvious, but here's the other thing. The more frustrated you become, the more overwhelmed you become, because you have to weed through so much waste to find value. The more burned out you become, because you spend all day working on things that are really wasteful And so at the end of the day, you've worked hard, but you've nothing to show for it. You completed a couple of papers, you sat through a couple of meetings, but you have nothing to show for it. And guess what else? When you spend the majority of your time on waste and you just keep letting it happen, waste accumulates. It just keeps piling on. It's not going to get any better. But when you start to look at your work through this lens and eliminate a lot of the waste, this is when the magic starts happening. This is when you get more done in the day than you ever thought possible. And you go home, and even if you're tired, you feel like that was a good day because you actually did something that adds value to the lives of the kids that you're serving, to the teachers that you're serving. You have made a difference. So again, your challenge this week, what do you do that's value adding or value enabling? What do you do that's waste? And then you're going to get to work creating more value and stop spending so much time on waste so that you can actually do work that matters because you've approached your work and you see your work like a builder. I'll talk to you next time. Hey, if you're ready to get started being a builder right away, then I want to invite you to join us at Buildership University. It's our exclusive online community for builders just like you, where you'll be able to get the exact training that you need to turn your school into a success story right now with the people and resources you already have. Inside, you'll find our best online courses, live trainings with me, tons of resources, templates, and exemplars, and monthly live office hours with me where you can ask me anything and get my help on whatever challenge you're facing right now. If you're tired of hitting obstacle after obstacle and you're sick of tiny little incremental gains each year, if you're ready to make a dramatic difference in your school right now, then you need to join Buildership University. Just go to buildershipuniversity.com and get started writing your school success story today.